Plessy was jailed for sitting in the white car on the East Louisiana Railroad. He was 7/8 white and 1/8 black, but yet was still considered as an African American man and was tried as one. Plessy's lawyer argued that the Separate Car Act violated the 13th and 14th Amendment. This trial resulted in having all facilities being separate, yet having equal conditions and opportunities.
Rosa Parks is most well known for her bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. One day, Parks got on the bus and saw an empty seat and sat there. The rule at the time was that if a colored person was sitting near the front on the bus and a white person were to board the bus, they would have to give their seat up to the white person and head to the back of the bus. However, Parks refused to get up out of her seat, and the bus driver called the cops and she was arrested. Parks became an icon of desegregation, and her refusal to sit in the back of the bus sparked a civil rights revolution. Parks became a symbol that would represent complete integration of African Americans into American society.
Brown versus Board of Education ended segregation in schools and created unified school districts. This case originated in Kansas, South Carolina, Virginia, and Delaware. The court ruled that schools were separate but not equal, as the Plessy versus Ferguson case had stated. This case removed the separate but not equal idea and was replaced with the idea of desegregated schools. And the court case occurred in 1954. Brown versus Board of Education was a landmark case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was ruled unconstitutional for public schools to be segregated. The outcome of this case was not widely accepted, but it gave African American children a fair chance to learn. Without this case, schools today could still possibly be segregated, and not every student would be given the opportunity to get an equal education.
The 14th Amendment was important to the civil rights movement. It meant that the law has to apply to everyone. With this amendment, once one were to gain citizenship, Congress could not take it away from that person. Also, there may not be discrimination against any person by the law. Without the 14th Amendment, there would still be segregation throughout the nation. However, this amendment was not effective until about 100 years later during the civil rights movement.
Because of Eisenhower's inability to take action towards civil rights, the civil rights movement was essentially stagnant during his years of presidency. His lack of actions encouraged many Americans to take actions against African Americans in very violent and harmful ways.
Later on in his term, he used his constitutional powers to advance desegregation in the government, which opened up jobs for African Americans in office, which he hoped would reduce racial tensions.
Eisenhower eventually took action when 9 African American students were barred by the government of Arkansas, preventing them from going to an integrated high school. He only did this when Woodrow Wilson Mann, the mayor of Little Rock, asked him to send federal troops to enforce integration and protect the 9 students. On September 24th, the president ordered the 101st Airborne Division of the United States Army, without its black soldiers, who rejoined the division a month later, to Little Rock.
As a child, Truman was raised with a racial bias, but he handled civil rights better than Eisenhower did because he had a lighter approach to it. He knew he needed the black vote in order to win the election, so he pushed for equality because it was the right thing to do.
Truman took much larger steps than Eisenhower did, integrating Executive Order 9981 in July 1948, desegregating and requiring equal opportunity in the American Armed Forces. After several years of planning, recommendations, and revisions between Truman, the Committee on Equality of Treatment and Opportunity in the various branches of the military, Army units became racially integrated. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most influential civil rights movement leaders of his time. He led a movement to decrease racism against African Americans, and his I Have Dreams speech moved for equality for everyone. He became the president of the NAACP in 1955, which is the National Association for Advancement of Colored Peoples. He promoted the idea of nonviolence, but was still arrested, bombed, was subject to personal abuse, and at the same time he still became a very large influence. King attended a segregated high school, and many people believe that this has accumulated into his desegregation ideas, which has ultimately affected the way America leads itself today. He also opposed the Vietnam War because he believed more African American soldiers were going into dangerous situations than white soldiers were. He thought that the United States government was using African American soldiers to complete more deadly missions than they were with white soldiers. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot on April 4th, 1968, and today we view him as a symbol and leader of the civil rights movement, who stood for equality for everyone, including minorities and African Americans.
Malcolm X studied the teachings of NOI leader Elijah Muhammad. Muhammad taught that the white society purposely worked to prevent African Americans from allowing them to achieve political, economic, and social success. They also encouraged their followers to defend and protect themselves against white abuse by any means necessary. Malcolm X took a spiritual journey to Mecca and realized that Orthodox Muslims preach equality of all races. Yet he still believed that racism had destroyed the spirit of America and that blacks would only become free if they do it themselves. Interesting fact about Malcolm X: he changed his last name to X to symbolize the rejection of the slave name he was given. Civil rights today are very important because it is vital that everybody is treated equally and fairly. These civil rights also aid in the protection from harsh and ruthless treatment and for being punished for false crime. Even today, in the 21st century, the world struggles to maintain civil rights and treating everybody equally. For example, the Onondaga Indian Nation is upset because they claim that about 4,000 square miles of land was taken from them in a series of false treaties. The land stretches from Pennsylvania all the way to Canada. The Onondaga Indian Nation began to file a petition against the Organization of American States due to a violation of human rights.